excited for this.
It's going to be a beautiful day.
Beautiful.
Good Bible
day.
study.
Yeah. I was really excited about what I read today.
You want to take us in?
No, I guess so. Okay, because, sorry. I just read 2 Samuel chapter 9, and I felt like I was reading the gospel, basically, because...
Oh, Mephibosheth.
Yeah, so Mephibosheth, however you say his name, is Jonathan's son, which is referenced in 2 Samuel 4, chapter 4, verse 4, where it said when, so Jonathan had a son, Mephibosheth, and his, like a servant was taking care of him while Jonathan had battle. That's when Jonathan and Saul died at battle, and then when it was told to that maidservant, whoever it was, then she, like, freaked out and dropped the baby. I don't know how old he was, and he became lame. And basically, like, if you think about it, it makes sense that, like, she was so afraid for the baby because Jonathan, now that Jonathan and Saul were dead, this would be a possible next heir, but David was supposed to be next. So it was like the fear of maybe David would kill this boy because he wanted the throne.
Right.
Like, you can see how that could have been a train of thought. And anyway, it's the same guy that's talked about here. And David starts out this chapter saying, is there anyone still left from the house of Saul that I can bless? Because he loved Jonathan. He had a covenant with Jonathan to always take care of his, like, descendants. So he's looking for someone to bless, which is really cool, like, for us to have that kind of a heart that's just looking to, like, see who can I help today or who can I bless. So very others oriented. And just like, he didn't obviously have to do that. So I first identify with, like, we should have that kind of a heart, but then also that God has that kind of a heart for us because we don't deserve anything, but, like, he chooses to show grace and kindness to us. So anyway, he, like, asks for them to bring Mephibosheth to him, and he's scared, Mephibosheth, because, you know, he probably has spent his life being afraid of David, thinking that David wouldn't like him because he was Saul's grandson. But anyway, this was just so cool because once they talk, he tells him, like, don't be afraid. I actually want to bless you, and, like, I want you to eat at my table for the rest of your days. And then he assigns, like, servants and all these people to care for his fields and all his, like, do the work, and then he would eat at the table. And this was the part I really felt like was the gospel, where we would be Mephibosheth, and David would be, like, the Lord welcoming us, basically, like, coming to us, just like David came to Mephibosheth. I cannot say his name. Okay, so just like David went to this man, Jesus came to us, like, to seek us out. And so then we were saved. Like, we came from a place of fear and, like, hiding, sin, weakness, just like him. And God came to us. And that's how, like, we got saved and, like, into that restoration, just by God's grace.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking how, you know, it repeatedly says, like, he always ate at the king's table.
Yeah.
Yet he was lame in both feet, which is interesting because, like, even after we're saved, like, we're always welcome at the table. Like, whenever we fall into sin or whatever, it's like we are now sons of God and, like, and daughters of God, co-heirs with Christ. Like, nothing can change that. and we should always just like bring our weaknesses to him. And it doesn't mean that our weaknesses will completely be taken away, but we are like brought into that fellowship with him. And so that's really cool.
Yeah.
And how we've been talking about the ways that Christianity is actually different from any other religion. Just like this chapter reminded me of that like we can't compare or say that, oh yeah, I can see how you can get it confused with like religion overall, because this is so different. Like Jesus came to us, like to earth to save us. Jesus came to our personal lives and our personal hearts to save us. But other religions are all about working up to God. And like, how can I reach God? By like trying my best and like doing this and that. But there's no way. Like David came to Jonathan's son, and Jesus came to us.
So
and
good.
That's the only way. And then we are received, we are given grace, and that full privilege of being in his family now and being in that fellowship.
Yeah.
As long as we partake in it, but it's all there for us.
It's all there for us. Yeah, we just have to
accept it. You
Yeah.
know, he has to like David has to assure him, like, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Like that one time, like it says that, don't be afraid, because it's like hard for us to believe, like, can this really, like my father Saul was like an enemy, and we were enemies of God. It's like, how is it possible that God would want to bless us in any way?
Yeah.
But it's true. It's like it's all there for us. This is such a good chapter.
Yeah.
I love like the line where it's like Mephibosheth refers to himself as a dead dog. He's like,
that.
it's like he felt worthless, a dead dog, but then like he became treated like the son of the king. It's like just through David's kindness.
Just grace and
Yeah,
kindness.
it's just grace. It is so beautiful.
Yeah. It's literally like the gospel.
This is the gospel. Straight
so I
up.
was like, wow. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Amazing.
it's different. It's different than anything else the world says.
Yeah.
It's like it could seem like because before like God reveals or like opens your eyes to the spiritual reality that we're sinners, it's like you could think, I'm doing my best.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we're dead dogs before the Lord.
Yeah.
And he is king.
Yeah.
Yet he did this for us. Yet he accepts us. Yet he loves us. There's nothing like that's grace.
There's so much grace.
So I guess like to just be humbled by like that fact and that reality, constantly reminding ourselves, because as humans, like our flesh is more prideful and more like I guess self-focused, either in one extreme or the other, of like thinking too high of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're not that bad, or thinking too low, like, oh, so.
Right. We should understand who we are as dead dogs, maybe, and also how good God is.
Yeah.
Like how high, and then it just helps us to like be more thankful for His grace and love.
It's so cool.
Such a good chapter.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Let's hear.
Well, I started the book of Nehemiah today. I read the first chapter. So this is, I think I read like 15 years after Ezra. So this is the third group of people from exile who went and returned to Jerusalem. Like Nehemiah, I guess, led that group. But in this chapter, basically, some people from Jerusalem came back to, I guess, Persia, and told Nehemiah, like, Jerusalem is having some trouble, like the walls are broken down, and it says, the survivors of the exile are in great trouble and disgrace, because the walls are all broken down and stuff. And specifically, like, Nehemiah questions these people. I think like throughout this chapter we see Nehemiah kind of sharing God's heart for Jerusalem. Like he cares about the state of Jerusalem, even though we learn that he's a cupbearer to the king. Like he has a pretty good role in the place where he's living, in Susa, in Persia. Like you know, he has a good position, but like he cares about Jerusalem. He cares about what God's heart is. So that's like the first thing that stuck out to me, like how he questions the Jewish remnant about Jerusalem. He wanted to know what was going on. And then we read in like the rest of the chapter, basically his response is just weeping, fasting, praying, and kind of just asking God to use him to like to restore Jerusalem, build the temple, like do something that's like help him to do something to build up Jerusalem, and just like to remember God's promise. Like he recalls God's promise, like in Deuteronomy, that if they turn back, his people turn back to God, then he'll have mercy and like accept them. He will gather them and bring them back to Jerusalem. So he kind of, like in his prayer here, it's confession. He's confessing his sins. He's recalling God's promises, and he's asking God to help him, like, because in chapter 2 he's going to speak to the king. He's going to ask him, like, you know, can I go back to Jerusalem, type of thing. What I really like about it though is just like how he shares God's heart for Jerusalem, and it's just like hit like any good Old Testament saint, like his main heart is like God's promise. Like that's so deep in his heart, and he's not like turned aside to like other things. Like the focus of his heart is God promised this, so I'm gonna pray for it, type of thing. So it's cool if our hearts are like I want to be like very aware of what God promises us, and just like that's where our heart should be at. That's cool. And and he just wants to be used in any way. Like his first response isn't to just straight up go to Jerusalem and try to figure it out. His first response is to pray and ask God to do something on their behalf, and use him. Like he has that position as a cupbearer to the king, and maybe that's for a reason. God can use
it's
that.
cool, like, to see his prayer and like prayers in the Bible, because they do always reference like God's promises and like, God, you said this, so it's interesting because like if God promised it, we know it's gonna happen, so why are we praying for it? But like those are the kinds of things we're supposed to like talk about in prayer with the Lord, like remind him of his promises, not that he forgot, but like to help and encourage our hearts. And like that helps us align with his will and like desire his will, because we're like, okay, this is what God promised, it's good, he's good, and then we focus on who he is, and that encourages us. And then just like obviously we don't want our hearts to desire what we want them to desire what God wants. So that's like during that process, I feel like that kind of that's like cool. That's what happens. But
where you set your heart on his promises, your heart gets transformed.
I feel like that's the biggest thing of the Christian walk, is like holding on to his promises, like knowing he's going to work things out for good, because we know his character, because he said he would. Because
how sometimes you could even pray and just you can pray like in a more selfish way and not really feel peace. Like I've been there. It's just like you're just praying, like, but you're not really. Your heart's not maybe being transformed to his will, and you're just maybe like saying stuff that you want. And it's like
it's just different when it's just about like his will.
You feel like that. Obviously, you can bring anything to God and all your needs, but it's just like it's a special. You just feel like a special communion, I guess, with God when you're bringing his promises and you know that your wills are like aligning, and you feel like
it's kind of unexplainable. It's like faith grows and that. Really cool.
All right. It's a nice chapter.
Excited and encouraged. we'll be back tomorrow for some more. God is good. He's gracious. He is faithful.
Yes. Let's hold on to his promises.
We want to
today.
commune with him. We want to spend time in prayer. We want to desire to help and serve others. Have his heart in that.
It's cool if we can view our
Recognize-
lives in that way.
Like
Yeah.
I just think about how he was a cupbearer, and like to have the right, like, you have a position, but it's like, how can this be used for God's glory, and
Still having that heart for just like his promises. And I think that's just like, that's how I want to be too. Just using whatever we have for his glory. So,
It's all
Yeah.
for his glory. He's doing something. Always.
yeah.
And it's exciting that we
Yeah.
don't have to worry about what it is. Because it's more about like that time that we spend in fellowship in need of him. That's most important, because that's when he like teaches and grows and builds our faith. So I feel like there's really not much for us to worry about. Like if
No,
we
no,
look
there's
at the big
not.
picture, like there's not much to worry about.
Yeah.
But of course, because like we're human, we will. But we just gotta bring it back.
Yeah.
Alright.
Awesome.
good stuff.
All right. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.